Hi everybody. So today I'm going to spend some time talking about leopard geckos, how to best set them up and keep them happy and healthy, in my opinion. So the first and most basic thing is the enclosure, and what I use is an Exoterra 24 by 18 by 12, and it's actually probably made specifically for leopard geckos, although you can keep other things in them. You can house up to 3 leopard geckos in an enclosure this size. I believe it translates out to about a 30-gallon tank. So they're actually perfect for these guys. The next thing that you're going to need is some lighting and outside heat source. So this light here is just a UVB bulb. It's not necessary, but it does help with a good day-night cycle. They are nocturnal, so they'll be hidden most of the day, but it's still nice to have some kind of daylight, I guess, for them. It's fairly natural as long as the hides are sufficient that they can get out of it. You obviously need a heating lamp or, again, some kind of outside heating source. I actually use both an overhead lamp and under tank heater because, well, I find that it mimics, again, a natural day-night cycle. So what happens is the bulb goes on in the day and acts as the sun would, heating up the substrate, and then at night the under tank heater comes on, helps with digestion, and heats up the substrate. So it's fairly natural that way. So again, heating, quite important. You're definitely going to need a thermometer. Hopefully you can read that there. So I'm at 82.9 right now. These guys do the best between 80 and 90 degrees. If you go lower than about 70, they start to get stressed out, and any higher than 90, again, they're going to start to get stressed out. So you do have to monitor that. The way the inside of your tank is going to be set up is you're going to need 3 hides. So you need a warm hide. For this I use a magnetic hide. I'll just pop it off here to the side and I can show you. So inside it's just like a little cave. He gets in there and usually actually spends most of his days in the warm hide. The center hide, which I'm using cork rounds for, is the humid hide. Now the reason why I use cork rounds for this is solely based on the fact that this gecko was actually a little bit of a rescue and never had a humid hide, so he won't actually use it. What I would recommend if you're just starting out would be just a Ziploc container, a Glad container. You can cut a hole in the top of it, and as long as it's big enough for your gecko to get into, pack it with some sphagnum moss or even paper towel, room temperature water, and just leave it in there. The humidity will rise to about 80 if you've got some heat on it. That'll help as well through the day. And that just aids in shedding, gives them kind of, I guess, just a humid place to hide. The rest of their tank is quite arid, so it's definitely helpful. For my purposes, what I do with these, and what actually works well for me, is I'm just fairly attentive to when my lizard is going to be shedding. If he actually comes out, you'll be able to see what he looks like. He goes a little bit chalky. So when I see that happen, I'm going to soak these cork rounds for about 20 minutes in some room temperature water, and then just pop them back in. I can get the humidity that way up to about 60. So it's a little more of a pain than just kind of keeping a dedicated humid hide box, but again, necessary for my particular gecko. And there's a cool hide. So this is kind of the nighttime hide, where the heating pad, the under tank heater, comes up through the substrate, and he does most of his digesting through the night and just hanging out in there. So that about covers that. Next thing is actually going to be the substrate. So I have a layer of Reptisand right there in the back. It's about 1 inch deep, and then on top of that, just to replicate the natural environment, I have slate tile. The reason why I chose slate is because these guys don't actually live on sand. They tend to live on rock. So The closest thing that we can do to replicate that is going to be with a tile. They work great, they're easy cleanup, they're just perfect. They keep the nails in check. There's no risk of impaction while they're eating, because if they're swallowing copious amounts of sand, things like play sand and things like that are definitely not good for these guys in the long term. He does have a little bit of space in the back where he can kind of lay down if he wants something softer, but generally doesn't take too much advantage of it. Usually you'll just kind of see his tail laying on that. And that's about it. So feeding, obviously important. There's a lot of different options when it comes to feeding. Crickets definitely are a staple for my guy. You can use hornworms, you can use superworms, mealworms, all kinds of different things like that. As long as you're making sure that they are calcium dusted with a high quality calcium. I use a brand called Flukers. It's just available at most pet shops, pet stores, Pet Value, things like that. And as long as you're dusting the crickets, at least twice a week, you can help to avoid things like MBD, which is pretty debilitating. It can actually prematurely end their lives. So, quite important for a full-grown leopard gecko like mine. We're talking about probably 15 full-grown crickets every other day, or sometimes every 3 days. They do go off their food from time to time. It's nothing to worry about. Sometimes they just kind of self-regulate themselves a little better than a human can. So, yeah. So, water, obviously important. They need to have water even though it's an arid climate. They definitely still need to have that kind of stuff. So I'm going to try to pull him out of here gently, if it'll let me. And we can talk a little bit about handling. So these guys will actually drop their tail if they're too stressed out. He's not too happy with me. I'm going to leave him be, but I'll let you have a look at him. So he's about to go into a shed, so you can see he's not very vibrant at all, and pretty chalky looking. Trying to get back to his hide. Okay. So you just kind of want to scoop them up from the belly, and mostly let them come to you. If you start grabbing at them and freaking them out, they'll it stresses them out, and B, they can drop their tails, and that's obviously they'll regrow it in a leopard gecko's case, but it can still be reasonably stressful for them. So let's just move this out of the way and let him get back to his house. So he's going to go in that rock hide, I think. Hey. Yeah. There we go. So, again, not picking them up by the tails, you can actually see in the cracks of his legs there that the skin's starting to come up a little bit. And there he goes. So he has a regrown tail. He lost it at some point in his life before he ever came to me. He's no worse for wear, but it's just kind of, being careful, being respectful of your animal, not badgering it when it doesn't want to be bothered. Again, they're nocturnal, so they don't usually like to be pulled out too much in the day. So another thing you need to be aware of is cleaning. So these terrariums, compared to a tropical terrarium, are actually really low maintenance. So this one, the substrate and the tiles get washed completely about every 3 months. The sand gets changed over every 3 months. Some people will actually push it to 6. I find that's a little bit long for my liking. So I try to keep it nice and clean. But again, if you're using tile, it's a really clean setup as far as what you have to do. It's just basically a matter of kind of cleaning up the poop every day, which they tend to go in one corner every single day, and you won't have any issues that way with, kind of having to follow them around and pick up after them. That can be a bit of a pain. So I think that about covers everything that I wanted to cover. If there's anything that I missed, please let me know in the comments, and thanks for watching.